This is part 2 of the Profiles video series. This is going to be a walkthrough using Salesforce.com. I'm going to first, as I start up everything, I'm going to go to my setup. I'm going to go to setup. I'm going to go to my systems overview on the left, brings up the index here. And I'm going to go down to the very bottom under administration setup, and I'm going to go to manage users. I'm going to click on the one that says profiles, go to users, roles, permission sets. Profiles is right there. So I'm going to click on profiles, and that's going to bring up my profiles. And it gives me a combination of custom and standard profiles. So what I look at is I'm looking at some of the things that we've gone over before in the PowerPoint slide. We have our chatter for user, chatter moderator user. Some of these might look familiar. See, HR manager is a custom one. There's a few custom options here as well that I've built out. Read-only, marketing user, you probably remember. But let's do this. Let's dive into one of the custom ones. I want to show you how those are set up. Remember, they're set up differently. So for right now, I think it's important to take a look at how what you want your HR manager to view. And this isn't necessarily to keep them from changing items. You know, I like an open environment, but I like a clean environment too. So as you clean up these, as you kind of fine-tune these views for your HR manager or for your marketing manager, it makes their day easy. It's not so cluttered up. So the first thing I want to do, for example, is to see if you look at the custom app settings. If you look to the right under sales, this is their default. Now, HR managers should probably have their recruiting as default. So let's start that as one of our major changes here. So right now, their default app that will come up will be the recruiting app, and that will involve permissions and all those other things. So, or positions and recruiting and everything that relates to their specific profile and what they do on a day-to-day basis. Let's go down below. We're going to pass by tab settings, administrative permissions, general user permissions, which I'm going to cover later time, because what I want to do is I want to go over what was in the PowerPoint, and that's going over our objects, our standard object permissions. So under our standard object permissions, right here, and keep in mind objects are accounts, campaigns. These are standard, so they come with Salesforce.com. And I want to make sure that there's some of these that are basically set up for this particular profile. It's HR manager, so I want to make sure that we don't have, that they're not able to delete leads. So I'm going to go to my leads here. I'm going to take off the leads from opportunities and leads because I don't want them to be able to delete those. And I may not even want them to be able to edit those, so I'm going to take that off as well. I look around here at anything else, I see the accounts. I don't want them to delete any accounts. And solutions, I want them to have edit maybe for solutions. So this is all negotiable depending on what the role provides. Now, here's something a little different. These are custom object permissions. These are things that the admin has set up within Salesforce that are not out of the box and standard. These are specific to the business processes. A good example would be this HR manager. They are going to be involved in positions, job applications. We want to make sure they have full CRUD. Remember, CRUD is create, read, edit, delete. I want them to have full CRUD access for things that they're aligned to, like employment websites, Google and Monster. They must be able to manage those websites within Salesforce. Let's see what else. Conferences, probably just a read conferences, but I don't want them to have management. Conferences are more for marketing. Components are more for sales. Candidates, definitely candidates, full CRUD access for candidates. Action plans, read for templates and approvers. Conference attendees, that would be more for marketing, but I can allow them to have read access on that. And for all this stuff related to Project Tracker, which is the agile methodology built in Salesforce, I'm not going to allow any access to that because I want to keep this a clean system and imagine that this is a large organization. So I'm going to save that. And that is basically completing my profile for HR manager. Now, while I'm here, I'm also going to dive into dive into one of the, let's go into contract manager. This is a standard out of Salesforce.com. So right now, as I mentioned before, the first thing you want to do is look at custom app settings. You want the app to be aligned to this contract manager. Contracts are with sales, not with recruiting, so I'm going to make the default into the sales default so they can see everything that sales is viewing for the app, and that's their going to fine-tune their views. I'm going to skip over everything which I'm going to cover at a later time, and I'm going to go back into my standard object permissions. And if there's one thing to notice, there's a rule here that applies to standard objects. They're not as open as custom objects. So I can't actually go in here and I can't have edit permissions with or CRUD permissions with the standard object permissions. What you see here is permissions out of Salesforce.com because it's standard. And also, if I go down to my custom object permissions, these are not editable either. So something to keep in mind as a rule is that you cannot edit permissions on standard profiles. Settings are different. As you just noticed, we edited our settings up above. So permissions are non-negotiable, but if you go up to your settings like tab settings, custom app settings, these are open. You can edit these. It's the permissions that you cannot edit. Okay, so those are the rules that kind of the rules of the road for profiles for custom and standard profiles. So the next video is going to be on sharing, and if you have a chance, go back. We have also videos on organizational wide defaults and also our first profile introduction. And if you have any questions, reach out to me, and thank you very much.